shoot, 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 shoot.
Hey guys, welcome. It's your boy Ren City, back at it again, the host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts. Jumping right into these NFL weekly recaps. Week 4 in the books. Whew, what a doozy we had. And we got the week 5 picks coming up. So let's just jump right into it. Going back to last Thursday where we had the Cowboys and Giants, big NFC East showdown. The Cowboys, fresh off a tough loss, facing a Giants team with some rare positivity following their first win of the season. The Giants came out with a field goal, Greg Joseph hitting it from 52 yards, and the Cowboys answered when Prescott found running back Rico Dowdle out of the backfield on a screenplay. Very well executed play led to the Cowboys taking a 7-3 lead. Early in the second quarter, another Giants field goal would lead it to 7-6, but the Cowboys answered again with a touchdown, doing it in a big play. Prescott finding CeeDee Lamb, who caught the ball and showed off that acceleration, scoring a 55-yard touchdown as the Cowboys went up 14-6. Giants, when they got the ball, you guessed it, another field goal, making it 14-9. And to start the second half, we'd see more of Joseph. He'd get his 4th field goal after a long Giants drive, cutting the lead to 14-12. Then we'd see one of the best kickers in the league come out. Brandon Aubrey, the former soccer player, nailed a 60-yard field goal to answer, increasing that lead back to 17-12. But it was all the leg of Greg Joseph. He hit his 5th field goal to make it 17-15. But Aubrey answered again to make it 20-15. And then when the Giants tried to get back in the game, failing on 4th down, they gave the ball back to Dallas, who couldn't quite run the clock all the way down. So they sent Brandon Aubrey out there for another field goal. He missed from 51 yards out. The first 50-plus yarder he missed his entire career thus far, breaking a streak of 16 in a row, including that 60-yarder he hit earlier in the game. That miss gave the Giants some hope, and they thought they were back in it, but Daniel Jones would get picked by Amani Oruwariye, and that pick clinched the Cowboys' win. A big win for them as they ended their 2-game losing skid, and it wasn't pretty, but a win's a win. Maybe they can build off that going into their next game. And for the Giants, they had chances to win, but they just couldn't make the winning plays when they were needed. And now they fall to 1-3 on the season. And they lost rookie wide receiver Malik Nabers to a concussion. It didn't look good. His face smashed into the ground. Hopefully he'll be good to go next game, but you never know with concussions. That Thursday game led us into the Sunday matchups where you had the Bengals going into Carolina, really trying to avoid an 0-4 start to the season. They were facing a Panthers team who looked much better with former Bengal Andy Dalton behind center. Took almost the entire first quarter to see the game's first score, and Dalton had the ball. He had the ball hit as he was throwing, and he was picked off by former Panther Von Bell, setting the Bengals up with great field position. From there, London, Ontario's own Chase Brown would take advantage of that great field position, scoring on a 3-yard touchdown run, putting the Bengals up 7-0. Panthers would answer right back with a little taste of their own Canadian running back. Edmonton, Alberta's Chuba Hubbard would punch in a 3-yard touchdown to tie the game at 7. How cool is that? 2 Canadian running backs going up against each other. It's great. In the NFL. Bengals would then respond in an even quicker fashion when Joe Burrow found superstar Jamar Chase over the middle of the field. He avoided some bad tackling by the Panthers and showed that speed off, taking it all the way to the end zone and putting the Bengals up 14-7. Panthers went on another drive led by Dalton, and the Red Rifle capped it off by finding the last pick of the first round of this year's draft, Xavier Leggett. South Carolina first-round choice would catch his first NFL touchdown and proceed to do the horse-riding celebration, so pretending to be on his horse, Dollar Bill, just as he told Deebo Samuel on his podcast earlier that week. That tied the game up at 14 with just over a minute to go in the first half. With not a lot of time left, Burrow would get the Bengals in the first and goal situations where he'd find Zach Moss out of the backfield. The running back had some work to do before getting to the end zone, but that hard-earned 1-yard touchdown pass put the Bengals up 21-14 going into halftime. In the second half, the Bengals just kept doing their thing, capping off a drive with another Chase Brown touchdown, this one from 1 yard out. His second of the game put the Bengals up 28-14. Panthers were forced to punt, and Evan McPherson added a 56-yard field goal to extend the Bengals' lead to 31-14. Excuse me, but no quitting these Panthers. Hubbard would bust out a 38-yard run, where a few later Andy Dalton would find Deontay Johnson in the end zone from 21 yards out, cutting the Bengals' lead to 31-21. In the fourth quarter, Joe Burrow would throw a bad pick, leading to an Eddie Pinheiro field goal to make it a one-possession game. The Panthers couldn't stop Cincinnati again, and Burrow and his offense killed some time off before getting another McPherson field goal, making it a two-possession game at 34-24. And the Bengals held on to the big road victory, their first of the season, puts them at 1-3 and keeps that season alive. Chase Brown may have worked himself into a starting running back position. The Canadian had same amount of carries as starter Zach Moss, so we'll have to see how that running back situation goes forward. Excuse me. The Panthers still put up points and still looked like a much more potent offense with Andy Dalton in there. I imagine the Panthers will keep going with the red rifle, and it makes you wonder if Carolina will even go back to Bryce Young this season. Both teams sitting at 1-3 after that game. Big NFC South bout with two teams that are looking to potentially fight for the division crown. You had the Saints taking on the Falcons in Atlanta, and the Saints forced the Falcons into an early punt where Rashid Shaheed was back to return it for the Saints. And while inside his own 5, which he probably shouldn't be going for the catch anyway, he muffed the punt. But not only did he muff it, he muffed it into his own end zone where it was recovered by Falcons special teamer Kaderil Hodge. And just like that, the Falcons went from punting to scoring a touchdown, leading 7-0 early. The Saints responded by moving right down the field and capping off a drive by bringing Swiss Army knife Taysom Hill into the game. He'd run a touchdown from 2 yards out, tying it at 7. The Falcons looked to answer, but instead Kirk Cousins was picked by Paulson Adebo, giving the Saints a short field. And again, they'd capped the drive off with another Taysom Hill touchdown run, this time from 7 yards out, and they led 14-7 early in the second quarter, their first lead of the game. Falcons would answer with a Younghoe Koo field goal to make it 14-10. Then on the Saints drive, Derek Carr looked for a quick screen pass, but the ball was tipped high into the air by Judon, where it was intercepted by Falcons' Troy Anderson. He'd take the ball all the way back for the pick six, putting the Falcons back up 17-14. The Falcons led by that same scoreline, with touchdowns getting provided by defense and special teams. In the second half, the Falcons, they'd start to make some offensive plays. Kirk Cousins found Darnell Mooney on a big play to get the drive going, and he'd end that drive with another Koo field goal, and the Falcons led 20-14. Saints would answer with a Blake Groupie field goal of their own, which was answered by a Koo field goal early in the fourth quarter, and the Falcons led 23-17 in the fourth quarter. Saints were looking to answer and got in first and goal situation, but faced with fourth and goal with under 4 minutes to go, instead of taking the field goal, the Saints went for it in fourth down and did not score, turning it over on downs. Saints defense was big, though, forcing Atlanta to punt and giving their offense another chance. They'd again move the ball down the field, getting into a first and goal situation. After a few terrible Derek Carr quarterback sneaks, they gave it to Alvin Kamara, and he'd punch it in from a yard out. And with the extra point, Saints led 24-13 with just under a minute left in the game. Kirk Cousins really had his work cut out for him with no timeouts. He'd look again for Darnell Mooney, but this time there'd be defensive pass interference against Adebo. That 30-yard defensive penalty really helped the Falcons get in a good position for the game-winning field goal. The offense didn't really help. 3 straight Kirk Cousins incompletions. Didn't seem to bother Younghoe Koo, though. Came out there and nailed a new career-long 58-yard field goal to put the Falcons up 26-24 with 2 seconds to go. That kick was clutch, and for your career-long, wow, it shows why he is one of the best kickers in the game. That kick clinched the comeback win for the Falcons, beating a division rival to get even with them on 2-2. A hard-fought win where not everyone touched the ball. Kyle Pitts didn't get any catches in that one, but the team won, and for the Saints, that's 2 crushing losses after the starting the season on fire. We'll see how Dennis Allen comes out for Week 5 in their tough matchup. Jaguars and Texans, a massive AFC South matchup with the winless Jaguars visiting the Texans. And the Jaguars were off to a terrible start to this season and still looking for that first win with Trevor Lawrence under the center. His losing streak still stemming from last season. Hosting Texans suffered their first loss of the season, taking a beating by the Vikings. And to start this game, the Jags offense stalled, forcing a punt. But it was muffed by Texan Steven Smith Jr., which was recovered by the Jaguars. From there, Trevor Lawrence would find rookie first-round pick Brian Thomas Jr. on a 2-yard touchdown. The Jaguars led 7-0 early. The Texans answered by moving right down the field and capping it off with a different kind of play. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs was in the backfield, so you knew something was up. He'd take a handoff from C.J. Stroud. While rolling to the right, he was looking to his left for like a throwback, but it was covered, so Diggs said, fuck it, and he scampered to the end zone. 6-yard touchdown, tied the game at 7. Jags took the lead back with a Cam Little field goal to go up 10-7, but the Texans would answer with a touchdown. Moving down the field, C.J. Stroud found Nico Collins on a 3-yard scoring play, and the Texans led for the first time in the game at 14-10. Jags would add another field goal, but that would get answered by a Houston field goal before the end of the first half. and Houston had a 17-13 lead going into halftime. Little over halfway through the third quarter, the Jags run a nice drive and capped it off with Trevor Lawrence finding Christian Kirk. He'd sneak into the end zone on the 8-yard scoring play to put the Jags back up 2017. And the Jaguars were rolling. Tank Bigsby busted out a 58-yard run where it looked like he scored, but the good hustle by Kalen Bullock pushed him out of bounds just before the pay dirt. And Houston, that hustle paid off because the Jaguars would be faced with first and goal. And after a few plays of not getting in, rather than taking the 3 points, they went for the touchdown. Lawrence tried a QB sneak, and it had no chance. That turnover on downs kept it 2017 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as the fourth quarter was winding down, Houston was deep in Jags territory. They were well within field goal range, but they were looking for the touchdown. And then on second and goal, with the time still running, C.J. Stroud found WNBA superstar Enrique Agumbawale's brother, Darian Agumbawale, and he caught it out of the backfield, securing the catch, scoring the 1-yard touchdown to put the Texans up 24-20. A clutch play that put him ahead with 18 seconds left on the clock as they pulled off the dramatic victory. Another cool moment in the book of dope moments for C.J. Stroud in the NFL. For the Jaguars, 0-4 to start the season. 9 consecutive losses with Trevor Lawrence starting. That's insane. And it's even more insane considering that contract he signed. That's got to be one of the biggest regressions following putting ink to paper in some time. I mean, his team, they were in position to win, but he had errant throws, there were questionable play calls, a lot of things going on. And this, of course, comes after the Jaguars owner, Shahid Khan, saying this is the best team ever assembled in Jaguars history. So, pulling an around the horns Woody Page here, looking at the schedule, the Jaguars host the Colts in another AFC South battle. And I don't want to say October's full of must-wins, but the Jaguars, if they go 0-5, their season's done. Shit, it may already be done at 0-4, but going 0-5 would be a disaster. At least if they win that, they'll have some hope. But until then, I'll get my clown makeup ready because I did predict the Jaguars to make the playoffs as a wild card this season. What was I thinking? For the Texans, big bounce back win for them. We saw what we come to expect out of the young C.J. Stroud already. The dude's a leader, and at times the Jaguars, they looked like they had it, but Stroud got his team behind him, and they made big plays when it mattered. And I love the game-winning touchdown to Agumbawale. Third running back on the depth chart took his opportunity. No Joe Mixon. Akers wasn't on the field. Why not give it to him in the biggest moment of the game? I love this D'Amico Ryans coach team here. You had the Broncos and Jets. Both the Broncos and Jets were coming into this game fresh off wins. The Broncos shocked the Buccaneers while the Jets took care of business against the Patriots. This game also had that extra spice on it with Jets offensive coordinator Nathaniel Hackett going up to the team he briefly coached and did not do very well with Denver. We know what Sean Payton had to say about that. And for all the hype coming into this game, it was all about the defenses. They played great. Broncos let the Jets drive into their territory, only allowing field goals, and going into halftime, the Jets led 6-0 from 2 second-quarter Greg Zuerlein field goals. Late in the third quarter, we'd see the game's first touchdown. Number 12 overall pick, Bo Nix, found Cortland Sutton in the back of the end zone, that 8-yard score. With the extra point, the Broncos leading for the first time 7-6. The offense looked lackluster at best against this tough Jets defense, but they managed to get that score, and the Jets answered with another Zuerlein field goal to regain the lead at 9-7. But on the Broncos' next drive, they'd answer with points, with Will Lutz hitting a field goal to go back up 10-9. Aaron Rodgers and the Jets had chances to answer, and with 2 minutes left in the game, the Jets would go for it on fourth down. But Aaron Rodgers got sacked by P.J. Locke, and it was a turnover on downs, giving the ball back to Denver. The Broncos were trying to run the clock down with their 1-point lead, but the Jets used all their timeouts, got the ball back. Jets had no timeouts, but they had Aaron Rodgers, and they'd get a big play when Denver was called with a defensive pass interference, and Rodgers got into Greg Zuerlein's range, setting up a 50-yard field goal for a guy who was already 3-on-3 on the day, but this kick wasn't even close. A terrible miss that would have put the Jets ahead. Instead, the Jets lose at home, 10-9 to the Broncos. And when you look at some of the Broncos' numbers, it makes it sting even more if you're a Jets fan. Broncos quarterback Bo Nix went 12 for 25, 60 passing yards, and that touchdown toss I mentioned to Cortland Sutton. Yet his team took the win. You can see the frustration on the Jets side to go from that high of how they looked against New England to this new low against the Broncos. It's something that needs to get fixed. I don't doubt Aaron Rodgers one bit, and he hasn't had to tell everyone to relax yet, but the Jets' offensive performance made Broncos head coach Sean Payton's criticisms of Hackett look a little more accurate. So for the Broncos, they're loving life right now. They won a very ugly game against one of the best defenses in the league. Their rookie quarterback struggled, but they still grabbed the W. So they got to feel good on a 2-game winning streak. And don't overlook that Broncos defense. That win equaled the Broncos with the Jets at 2-2 on the season. Big NFC North bout with the undefeated Vikings heading in the Lambeau to take on my Green Bay Packers. And the Pack had won 2 in a row with Malik Willis behind center. And I thought he'd get the start in this one, but no, Jordan Love returned from his injury. I did not think he'd be back so soon after that knee injury sustained week 1 in Brazil against Philadelphia. But it was the Vikings opening drive who was really great here. Just 3 minutes into the game, Sam Darnold tossed a 29-yarder to Jordan Anderson. And just like that, Vikings up 7-0. Packers had an impressive opening drive of their own, but went for the field goal where rookie Braden Narvison, he'd clank it 37 yards out. That was the first kicker of the NFL season to miss a kick shorter than 40 yards. Not something you want to have on your resume. The Vikings would then go on another nice drive. This one capped off with Sam Darnold finding Josh Oliver on a 2-yard pass. Just like that, the Vikings were up 14-0 in the first quarter. As the quarter was winding down, Jordan Love would throw an interception on third down, giving the Vikings great field position, and also adding some injury to insult with wide receiver Christian Watson picking up an injury on the play, and he'd leave the game. Minnesota took advantage of that turnover by scoring on a Jordan Addison 7-yard touchdown run. He took the sweep and weaved its way through the end zone, putting the Vikings up 21-0. Packers looked to get some points, but Narvison missed his second field goal attempt of the game, keeping the score the same. Green Bay got the ball back quickly, and Love was trying to get the Packers into it, but his throw was high and had a little too much mustard on it, looking for tight end Luke Musgrave. Went over his hands and into the arms of Viking Shaquille Griffin. He'd return Love's interception deep in the Packers' territory, where Sam Darnold would throw his third pass of the game, a beautiful toss to Justin Jefferson, who made a nice adjustment on the 14-yard touchdown catch. And with 5.5 minutes to go in the first half, the Vikings were up 28-0 at Lambeau Field. That's crazy. The Packers gave the home fans something to cheer about before halftime. With a little stroke of luck, the Packers punted it, and Jalen Naylor lost it in the sun, muffing the punt, leading the Packers recovering with great field position. From there, Jordan Love would show off some touch, throwing a pass to Jaden Reed. That 15-yard touchdown made it 28-7 going into halftime. The Vikings were looking to add some more points early in the second half. It's Sam Darnold's biggest mistake of the game. He threw it looking for his receiver, getting picked off by Packers' Xavier McKinney. He became just the 4th player since 2000 to have an interception in each of the first 4 games of the season. What a signing he's been for Green Bay. That red zone turnover was massive for Green Bay to try to stay in the game. They wouldn't get any points in the entire third quarter, but early in the fourth, Jordan Love would find Dontavian Wicks for a 6-yard touchdown, cutting the lead at half to 28-14. The Packers defense got the ball back to the offense after they strip sacked Sam Darnold, giving the Packers great field position. From there, Love would find tight end Tucker Kraft on a short pass, and he turned full bulldozer mode, plowing his way into the end zone. The Packers went for 2, and he'd find Tucker again, Love would, cutting the Vikings lead to 28-22. The Vikings hadn't scored in the entire second half and were desperate need of points, and Sam Darnold got him in the field goal range where rookie kicker Will Reichard knocked it through to make it 31-22, a 2-possession game. Packers were looking for an immediate answer, but Jordan Love skied his ball to the end zone. It didn't have much of a chance as it was intercepted by Vikings Byron Murphy. Packers got the ball back again and were looking on a nice drive, but Byron Murphy again coming up big, forcing a fumble which was recovered by the Vikings. The Vikings had a chance to kill off the game and move the ball inside the Packers' 5-yard line, but when faced with a 4th and down, instead of taking the points, the Vikings went for it, and they were stopped by the Packers' defense. And in just 5 plays, the Packers scored on a 96-yard drive. Play after play, including a 42-yard play to Jaden Reed, it set up a 17-yard touchdown pass to Dontavian Wicks. His second of the game cut the lead to 31-29 with just under a minute to go. The Packers had to go for an onside kick, and they didn't recover. The Vikings picked it up. They sweat late in that one, but they went in the Green Bay and they held on for the win, staying undefeated at 4-0. One of the only few teams left in the league to have that. We'll get some more on that. But it's just crazy how good the Vikings have started the season. I thought they were a wild card coming in. There was talks J.J. McCarthy, the rookie, was going to start. We didn't know Sam Darnold was going to come in and just look like an MVP out there, but this is looking like Sam Darnold everyone expected before he was drafted and put a Jets jersey on. And as a Packer fan, I hate to say it, but the Vikings look like the early cream of the crop in the NFC. And it was nice to see former Pack Aaron Jones come back into town. You never like to cheer for a Viking there as a Packer fan, but he's a good guy. I always like to root for former Packers there. So the Packers dropped to 500 at 2-2, and if you look at Jordan Love's fourth quarter numbers alone, wow. But it's a four-quarter game, and they can't start going down 28-0, expect to win of a game. Sam Darnold, like I said, looking like an early MVP in this season, and I did not expect to say that. It was cool Jordan Love wore a Brett Favre jersey to kind of honor the legend who's become recently diagnosed with Parkinson's, but people hate on Favre too. I can understand why. Totally see that. And Love, I guess some of his interceptions looked a little Favre-esque in that game. He'll have to get rid of those going forward. But you got to have some concern at the kicker position, you know. Mason Crosby isn't walking through that door anymore. He was a reliable kicker for a long time in Green Bay, and since he's left, there's been struggles. And Braden Narvison, the rookie, when you lose a game by 2 points and you can circle 2 missed field goals, including one from within 40 yards, it's kind of big. So you can see why the Packers tested the waters a bit, bringing Chad Ryland and Lucas Haversick in, but neither was signed. LaFleur is sticking with Narvison. He has the job for now, but if he misses a few more kicks, he might be looking for work. The undefeated Steelers were heading into Indianapolis to take on a Colts team fresh off their first win of the season. Colts Anthony Richardson looked sharp to start, finding Michael Pittman on a big 32-yard play to get in the Steelers' territory. A few plays later, Jonathan Taylor run one in from 2 yards out, giving the Colts an early 7-0 lead. After the Steelers' offense stalled, the Colts got the ball back and they were moving again. Colts would see something they've seen way too much of already, and that's Anthony Richardson leaving the game due to injury. On a scramble in the first quarter, he hurt his hip and would have to leave the game going to the blue tent, where former Super Bowl legend Joe Flacco came in the game, and he was looking crisp. Richardson did come back into the game for a play, and the Colts, for some reason, wanted to test him out by making him run on a design run play. He did not look comfortable and left the game again. Flacco came in and would find Josh Downs on a 4-yard touchdown. The Colts were up 14-0. Had a Matt Gay field goal, and the Colts were up 17-0. Steelers finally got on the board as the first half expired with a Chris Boswell field goal, and they trailed 17-3. Late in the third quarter, the Steelers finally got their first touchdown of the game. Justin Fields dropped back to pass. No one was open. He ran it in from 5 yards out, making it a one-possession game at 17-10. Flacco would answer by leading the Colts down the field, hanging in the pocket before finding tight end Drew Ogletree. He caught the ball and beeline for the end zone, putting the Colts up 24-10. Steelers answered by moving the ball down the field again, and they'd get within the 5-yard line, and Fields would drop back to throw. And just like the earlier score, he'd just run it in. He took a hit on the way, but he'd score, making it 24-17 in the fourth quarter. With just over 6 minutes left, the Colts would hit another field goal to make it a two-possession game at 27-17. The Steelers answered in less than 3 minutes of game time. Justin Fields found tight end Pat Freiermuth, who caught it and backed it up into the end zone, cutting the Colts' lead to 27-24. Steelers would get one more chance to try and tie or take the lead. They were faced with a fourth down, and Justin Fields' pass was incomplete. Colts would go in the victory formation as they moved to 2-2 on the season after dropping their first 2 games of the year, while the Steelers, they suffered their first loss of the season, no longer undefeated, moving to 3-1. And I know there's talk of Russell Wilson getting healthier, but Justin Fields has done more than enough to earn that starting job in Pittsburgh. I can't see Mike Tomlin making the move to Russ anytime soon. For the Colts, they got to worry about the health of their young quarterback. A theme now in Indy. At least you got reliable Joe Flacco on the roster, and he handled that situation a lot better than some backup or even starting quarterbacks in this league would do. So it's a big win for the Colts, but that injury concern on Anthony Richardson, hopefully he can play. Like, he needs more reps out there. He makes the plays that make you think he can be like the best ever, these sky-reaching throws. Then he makes the boneheaded plays, and the ways to get better is to play, and he's just not getting on the field. We'll see how it looks going forward for them. Steelers back to the drawing board. Like I said, first loss of the season, but they did play pretty well in trying to come back. And I don't know. I think Justin Fields should be the guy in Pittsburgh. He fits well there. Talking about his former team, the Rams headed to Chicago to take on the Bears. Rams fresh off their first win of the season. I still don't know how they pulled that off against the 49ers. Well, the Bears were on a 2-game losing streak. The Rams got the first 2 scores. Joshua Carty field goal in the first quarter, followed by another by the rookie quarterback in the second. Sandwiched in between those two were a nice drive by Matthew Stafford, which unfortunately for him ended in a red zone interception by Bears' Jaquan Brisker. And with the Rams leading 6-0, they took possession deep in their own territory. And as Stafford went back to throw, he was strip sacked by Montez Sweat. Bears recovered, getting their best field possession of the game. And with the short field, the Bears got their first touchdown. Rashawn Johnson punched one in from a yard out, and the Bears led 7-6. Bears got the ball back one more time in the first half, getting a last-second field goal to end the half, and the Bears went from trailing 6-0 to leading 10-6 going into the halftime break. Early in the second half, Rams went on a nice drive, but again could not get to the end zone, resulting in another Cardi field goal as they trailed 10-9. Bears answered by going on a nice drive led by number one overall pick Caleb Williams, and the rookie capped the drive off finding DJ Moore in the back of the end zone from 9 yards out. Moore showed off the amazing footwork securing the touchdown in bounds, and it was the first connection between Moore and Caleb Williams and their pairing in Chicago. The Rams would answer on the first play of the fourth quarter, where Kieran Williams would run one in from 3 yards out. The seventh straight game scoring a touchdown for Williams. The Rams went for two to try and tie the game, but couldn't convert, and they trailed 17-15. The Bears answered in a big way. After a few first down pickups, the Bears handed it to DeAndre Swift. The running back broke a 36-yard run for a touchdown, extending their lead to 24-15. Rams rookie kicker Joshua Carty hit his fourth field goal of the game, this one from 52 yards out to make a one-possession game at 24-18. But that's as close as the Rams would get. Big win for Williams over the veteran Matthew Stafford, and the Bears, they did enough offensively, but it was all about their defense. The turnovers they created really swung the game, and the Bears moved to 500 to 2-2, while the Rams dropped to 1-3. The Eagles pulled off a big win in New Orleans, and they stayed in the NFC South to face the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. And the high-flying Bucs were really grounded by the Broncos in their last game, and they were looking for a bounce back. Buccaneers would go on a very impressive opening drive that ended with Baker Mayfield finding Mike Evans in the end zone on the 2-yard touchdown, giving the hosts the early 7-0 lead. After the Eagles' offense did nothing, the Bucs would go on another drive, this time ending with Mayfield finding Trey Palmer on a 15-yard scoring play, putting Tampa Bay up 14-0 in the first quarter. Early in the second, Tampa Bay was faced with a 4th-and-goal situation after faking the handoff. Baker Mayfield punched in the 1-yard touchdown, and the Bucs were up 21-0. They get more points through a Chase McLaughlin field goal and had a 24-0 edge over the Eagles, but Philly finally got on the board with under 2 minutes to go in the first half. Faced with a 4th-and-goal of their own, Jalen Hurts bought some time before finding Paris Campbell in the end zone. On paper, it was a 1-yard touchdown, but it was a pretty tough pass play that resulted in that score, cutting the Buccaneers' lead to 24-7. The Eagles opened the second half with the ball, and their first play of the quarter was a 59-yard run by Barkley. They'd cap that drive off with Jalen Hurts getting a successful tush push, making it a 10-point game as the Eagles trailed 24-14. The Bucs would answer by marching down the field and scoring on a 1-yard touchdown of their own. 4th-round draft pick out of Oregon from this year's draft, Bucky Irving. He took the pitch and made it to pay dirt, scoring his first career NFL touchdown. Tampa Bay went to kick the extra point. It was blocked by the Eagles. Kelly Ringo scooped it up and returned it the other way for the reverse 2-point conversion. The Eagles playing the Uno card on that one and adding 2 points. They now trailed 30-16. In the fourth quarter, we didn't see a lot of scoring. It's the Tampa Bay field goal, and they'd strip sack Jalen Hurts while cruising to a 33-16 win. That's more of the Buccaneers team we saw to start the season. Broncos just got real advantage of them last week, I guess. But Philly, I think the injuries were just too much for them to overcome in this one. The Buccaneers outplayed the Eagles in really every facet of the game, minus the special teams and their play. But head coach Nick Sirianni and the Eagles dropped to 500 at 2-2, and a lot of questions about this team going forward. Hopefully they can get some of their guys back on the field. And for Tampa Bay, they're back on their winning ways and looking to maintain that kind of level going forward. The Patriots were coming in losers of their last two, while the 49ers coaching staff probably did not sleep a wink since losing to the division rival Rams the game prior. A game they really should have won, but it was also their second loss in as many weeks. And the 49ers, they were moving the ball pretty well, but Patriots defense was not letting them punch it in. 49ers went on a long drive, but would settle for a field goal. And the Patriots looked to answer, but running back Ramondre Stevenson would fumble the ball, leading to the 49ers getting fantastic field position. And that fumble may have lost the starting job for Stevenson, the 4th straight game where he's fumbled. Coach Jared Mayo has preached ball security is job security. And the 49ers could only muster another field goal, and they led 6-0 after 2 red zone appearances. Early in the first quarter, New England's Jacoby Brissett was looking over the middle, trying to convert a third down. Instead, his pass was picked off by superstar linebacker Fred Warner. He returned it 45 yards for the pick six. That was the first pick thrown by Brissett this season, and what a big one. The 49ers would lead 13-0. The Patriots looked to respond. Faced with a fourth down, they'd go for it, but Stevenson was stuffed by Warner. Another big play for the Star, turning him over on downs. Brock Purdy would lead San Fran back in the red zone, and this time they'd get their touchdown. Purdy would find tight end George Kittle for a nice catch in the end zone. He kind of lofted it there, leaving his tight end hanging a bit, and he had three Patriots around him, but he pulled down the 12-yard touchdown catch, giving the 49ers a 20-0 lead. The 49ers overcame adversity on that drive as well. They had two different touchdowns taken off the board due to penalties, so it was nice for them to still cap that off with a touchdown. Patriots wanted any kind of points they could get to end the first half, and their big kicker, Joey Sly, came in, knocked through a new franchise record 63-yard field goal as the first half expired, cutting that lead to a 20-3 in historic fashion. Start the second half, the 49ers looked to run the kickoff out, but they'd fumble, giving the Patriots great field position to start the second half, and they'd get their touchdown. Brissett would find tight end Austin Hooper on a nice play-action pass to score 5 yards out, cutting the Niners' lead to 20-10. Niners wanted to make up for that turnover, and Brock Purdy found Deebo Samuel Sr., who wasn't even sure if he'd play, but he was out there, and he got a big play leading them in the Patriots' territory, and they'd cap the drive off by giving it to Jordan Mason, where he'd run one in from 4 yards out, increasing the lead to 27-10. In the fourth quarter, each team exchanged field goals, and the 49ers secured the big 30-13 home win, putting them at 500 at 2-2, while the Patriots moved to 1-3, and they got to fly all the way across the United States again for their next game as they head home to face the Dolphins in an AFC East battle. And I mentioned earlier we could see Ramondre Stevenson benched for Antonio Gibson. I love that quote from Mayo. Ball security is job security. It's true, though. You got to keep the ball. If you keep giving it up, you're going to lose your job. And some injury news for the Patriots. New England center and captain David Andrews opted for season-ending shoulder surgery. The longtime Patriot will miss the rest of the season, with eyes returning on being healthy for next year. So that could be big for them going forward. For the 49ers, it was good to see Deebo Samuel back in the lineup. Brandon Ayuk, he's playing, but still missing after he's not making a lot of plays since signing that huge deal before the season. But the biggest cause of concern is Christian McCaffrey, last year's Offensive Player of the Year. I guess he's gone to Germany to receive treatment on these injuries that have kept him out all year. And it's been bilateral Achilles tendonitis, meaning he's dealing with that injury in both his legs. So we'll see how the treatment went in Germany, but I don't want to sound too doom and gloom here, but this is not good news. Tendonitis is painful, and it could potentially lead to an Achilles tear, so not very good. Maybe he got some good pretzels while in Germany, but I don't know what other positives came out of this. Hopefully we can see him back. He's one of the best players on the field when he's healthy. I don't know, but he doesn't know when he's coming back. The team doesn't know when he's coming back. Fantasy football owners don't know when he's coming back. All right, that takes us to the Washington Commanders, who have been one of the darlings of the early season, showing they're no joke, beating the Bengals on Monday Night Football. They were hoping to continue their winning streak heading into the desert. Take on the Arizona Cardinals, another one of my wild picks to make the NFL playoffs. They lost a close one to Detroit the week prior. The home team would get the ball and start the game on a nice long opening drive, finishing it off with going for it on fourth down, and Kyler Murray spotted wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr. in the end zone. That 2-yard score put the Cardinals up 7-0 early, and the Commanders would answer with a heavy dose of running back Brian Robinson Jr. He'd help get the Washington Commanders inside the 10 and cap that drive off with a 6-yard touchdown run to tie the game at 7. Washington with the ball back and another rushing touchdown, this time from a Boise State star, Jeremy McNichols. He'd bust out a long run, scoring on a 27-yard touchdown, putting the Commanders up 14-7. Cardinals won the answer with a score of their own, and with under a minute to go in the first half, they were stopped on fourth down, where Washington took advantage of that turnover and downs, and Austin Seibert hit a 45-yard field goal as the first half expired, giving the Commanders a 17-7 lead at the halftime break. To open the second half, Washington moved the ball with a big chunk of yards via defensive penalty on Arizona, and that set up Jaden Daniels scampering into the end zone on a well-designed quarterback run. That 9-yard score put the Commanders up 24-7. Another Seibert field goal, and they're up 27-7. Faced with 4th and 12 on their drive, down 20, the Cardinals kind of had to go for it. They'd pick it up. They'd cap that drive off with a 6-yard James Conner touchdown, cutting the lead to 27-14 before the end of the third. In the fourth, Washington went on another long drive where Jaden Daniels found Terry McLaurin in the end zone for 10 yards out. The Commanders went for 2, and they got it, making it 35-14. Cardinals weren't quitting, and Murray found Michael Wilson, but his wide receiver summed up kind of how the game went by turning a positive to a negative when he fumbled the ball, and it was recovered by the Commanders. From that turnover, McNichols would run in his second touchdown of the game, this one from 7 yards out. And the refs had enough of the Commanders' fun, giving an unsportsmanlike penalty for the celebration. It didn't look like much, but I guess they're cracking down on that. But Washington went into Arizona, and they cruised to a 42-14 beatdown. What more can you say about the Dan Quinn era in Washington? This team's firing on all cylinders. They're 3-1, leading the NFC East, and Quinn's done amazing. But how about that pairing of offensive coordinator Cliff Kingsbury and number 2 overall pick Jaden Daniels? You know, Cliff Kingsbury must have been feeling good coming into where he used to coach as Arizona and beat the crap out of them. That OC and rookie quarterback have been a great pair, but let's admit this. Jaden Daniels, he's something else. I've mentioned before on these recaps, he's not an ordinary rookie. 26 for 30, 233 yards, throwing touchdown as well as a rushing touchdown. He finally threw his first career interception, taking him 4 career games to do it. I think he's the real deal. And, you know, McNichols is making some plays out of the backfield. They got a good 1-2 punch with Robinson Jr., and that's with Austin Eckler out while he's still dealing with that concussion. Once he comes back, they'll have even more threats. I never thought I'd say this at the start of the season, but the Washington Commanders are one of, if not the most exciting teams to watch in football. I've never had a Washington jersey, but I'd like to get my hands on a Jaden Daniel ones, and it's super cool to see him sharing that moment with former Washington quarterback Doug Williams. The pair seem to have a great relationship, and it's cool to see the legendary quarterback, who also happens to be of color, dealing with so much adversity throughout his career, mentoring the young Daniels. You love to see that stuff. And for the Cardinals, they're now 1-3. They've been in some games, even though they were nowhere in this Washington game, but the Cards, they've got off to great starts, and they just kind of fall apart throughout the game. It's not a new thing either with Kyler Murray, and they just got to get this figured out, because I guess when you lose by 30 almost, you can't blame closing out the game, but they gotta clean that up. I think the talent's there. I think Jonathan Gannon's a good coach, and they got to rate this ship because they're going to San Francisco next, and that's not going to be an easy one. Divisional bout between the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs and Los Angeles Chargers went down in California. KC's opening drive, Mahomes found Travis Kelce on a big play to move down the field. And throughout the game, Kelce played pretty well, and he'd surpass Hall of Famer Tony Gonzalez for the most receptions in Chiefs franchise history. So congrats to him on that. However, on this opening drive, rookie Carson Steele would fumble the ball and the Chargers would recover. Taking advantage of that turnover, the Chargers would march right down the field where they capped the drive off with Justin Herbert hanging in the pocket and finding second-round pick out of Georgia, Ladd McConkey, in the back of the end zone. That gave the Chargers a 7-0 lead. After this touchdown, you could see Justin Herbert limping a bit, and he was questionable coming into this game with a high ankle sprain. The Chiefs looked to try to answer with some points of their own. Mahomes' long-distance throw was intercepted by Christian Fulton, but as he was returning the ball, he'd fumble it where the Chiefs would recover it back, a play that seemed to work in their favor until you saw who was laying on the ground. During that crazy double turnover play, Mahomes ended up colliding with Rashee Rice. Rice went down, had to be carted to the locker room, and it got worse for the speedster wide receiver. It was announced he tore his ACL, basically ending his season. Another tough blow for Kansas City, who are already missing bruising running back Isaiah Pacheco for a big chunk of the season. But the game went on, and Cameron Dicker, the kicker, would hit a 50-yard field goal, putting the Chargers up 10-0 in the first quarter. And the only score in the second quarter was an explosive one. Patrick Mahomes airing a deep one, the 28th overall pick in this year's draft, Xavier Worthy. 54-yard touchdown, cutting LA's lead going into halftime 10-7. Chargers looked to answer with some points to start the second half. Herbert found McConkey on a big play. However, Cameron Dicker missed a long field goal attempt, keeping it 10-7. Chiefs would get a field goal from Butker with just under 6.5 to go in the third to tie things up at 10. Chargers were trying to break the tie, and they were faced with a fourth down situation. The replay showed they might have actually picked up the first down on third down, but it wasn't reviewed. Said the Chargers elected to go for it on fourth down, and Herbert's pass was incomplete. The fourth quarter turnover was huge as the Chiefs took advantage of that by marching down the field where Mahomes was making ridiculous plays all drive, keeping the defense shaking their collective heads. But the drive was capped off with Samaje Perine running it in from 2 yards out, giving the Chiefs their first lead of the game, 17-10, with just over 6.5 to go in the fourth. Chargers were again looking for some points outside of the first quarter, but on a big third down, Chris Jones would sack Justin Herbert, forcing the Chargers to punt and bank on their defense to get it back. Chargers forced Mahomes into a tough third down, but of course, Mahomes found the receiver to pick it up. Chiefs run the clock out, take the comeback win on the road, a big 17-10 win. Another tight one for the Chiefs that are still undefeated, one of only 2 teams left, Minnesota being the other. The Chiefs beat the Chargers for the 6th consecutive time, also their 11th straight road win in AFC West play. That's all the Chiefs do. All they do is win. The injuries might start that up, though. Losing Rice, that's pretty big. Patrick Mahomes, he trusts him, you know. And Travis Kelce was having kind of a down season until that past game. Maybe that'll trend upwards. And with Rice out, that's probably going to be more expected. And rookie running back Carson Steele may have pulled a Ramondre Stevenson and lost his job because of fumbling. Another big fumble by the rookie had us seeing more P. Ryan and more of newly signed Kareem Hunt. He was great during his first stint in Kansas City, but he literally kicked those chances away with his domestic abuse. But he's come full circle. He's returned to Kansas City, a new person, I guess. His impact was felt in that win. We'll probably see a lot more of Hunt going forward until Pacheco comes back. But like I said, with New England head coach, ball security is job security, so we'll see if Steele can get more touches. For the Chargers, that's a tough one. They had numerous chances to take the game. They went 3 and out 4 of their 8 possessions in the final 3 quarters. All 10 of their points came in the first quarter, and they saw nothing from there. Positive is that Justin Herbert made it through the game, and that bye week for them coming up is crucial to trying to get his health back. Because they go as Herbert goes, really. Cleveland headed into Las Vegas with both teams fresh off losses in their previous game. The Raiders were a little shorthanded coming in. Davante Adams, who had a hamstring injury, and pass rusher Max Crosby, who's missing the first game of his NFL career with an ankle injury. Browns got off to a great start, going on an impressive first quarter drive that ended up with Deshaun Watson finding Blake Whiteheart for the 1-yard touchdown. After the Raiders offense stalled, the Browns picked up some more points with a 56-yard Dustin Hopkins field goal. They were up 10-0 after the first quarter, but early in the second, the Raiders got on the board. A long drive led to second-year receiver Trey Tucker taking the ball in the end around and scampering into the end zone. 3-yard rushing touchdown cut the lead to 10-7. Late in the first half, Daniel Carlson hit a 52-yarder to tie the game up at 10 before halftime. And in the third, the Raiders looked to get in after a third down stop by Cleveland, but there was a roughing the passer play on Gardner Minshew, which led to a first down, led to a Carlson field goal, putting the Raiders up for the first time at 13-10. The Browns were looking to answer, and Watson put it right into the breadbasket of wide receiver Amari Cooper, but the ball popped right in the air where it was picked by Trayvon Moehrig. He would get a good return, getting the Raiders in the good field position. Amari Cooper leads the league in drops, and that was a bad one that really hurt his team, and you can't put Watson at fault for that. The Raiders would take advantage of that turnover by giving the ball to wide receiver DJ Turner on the jet sweep. He'd weave through the defense on an 18-yard touchdown run, increasing the Raiders' lead to 20-10 to start the fourth quarter. To start the fourth quarter, the Raiders were looking to eat some more clock and protect their lead, but running back Zamir White fumbled, and it was scooped by Cleveland's Rodney McLeod, and he went 30 yards to pay dirt for the defensive touchdown, getting the crowd buzzing. The visiting crowd, they're always visiting Vegas, but they'd go silent when Dustin Hopkins missed the extra point, keeping the score at 2016. So we'd see the Cleveland fans go bonkers again. And Deshaun Watson hit Amari Cooper on a 90-yard score, but there was offensive holding. Play was negated. It's kind of a brutal call, but the defense stopped the Raiders again, giving Watson another chance to take the lead. They got a big play when running back Jerome Ford busted a 35-yard in the Raiders' territory, but that earlier extra point miss was costly because the Browns couldn't just tie the game up with a field goal. They were faced with a 4th and 3. They had to go for it. Deshaun Watson was sacked by Charles Snowden, the guy filling in for Max Crosby. Big sack for him. Big time comeback win for the Raiders. Minshew at the helm, moving to 500 on the season, 2-2. They're feeling great about that win until news came out. Davante Adams demanded a trade. How hurt was that hamstring? Talk about a buzzkill on the win. I love him as a receiver. That's going to be a tough loss to the Raiders, and we'll see where he goes. But there's still talk on where he will go. Like they're saying, Aaron Rodgers in New York, that exciting Washington team, maybe his old quarterback Derek Carr in New Orleans. So we'll see what happens, but you got to give credit to the Raiders. With all the adversity they were facing, they fought back. They earned the win. They seemed to respond to the criticism of head coach Antonio Pierce after last game. The running game looked better. They've been struggling to run the ball, but they're using wide receivers on end arounds and those sweeps. It seemed to really be effective considering they scored on 2 of those plays. But whatever creative ways this offense can do to get the running game going, they got to keep up with it. Otherwise, you're going to let teams tee off on Minshew, and you're not going to win a lot of games that way. For Cleveland, it's crazy how they lose these games. Amari Cooper continuing to drop passes, explodes for a 90-yard touchdown, but there's a flag, so that's no good. You have missed extra points. This is all these little mistakes the Browns make end up biting their ass at the end of the game, and that's why they're 1-3 right now. The Bills were taking their unbeaten record into Baltimore to face the Ravens, who were fresh off their first win of the season, beating Dallas in Dallas. The Ravens' first possession could not have gone any better. Derrick Henry busted an 87-yard touchdown run, almost untouched, the longest in Ravens franchise history, giving them the early 7-0 lead. The Bills answered with a Tyler Bass 50-yard field goal to make it 7-3, but the Ravens opened the scoring in the second quarter when Lamar Jackson found Derrick Henry out of the backfield. King Henry's second touchdown of the game made it 14-3. Bills offense continued to struggle against that Ravens D. They got it back, and they'd score a touchdown with another player out of the backfield. Lamar Jackson showing off that touch, finding Justice Hill on a 19-yard touchdown, giving the Ravens a 21-3 lead. So they then took into the halftime break, and in the third quarter, the Bills needed points, and we'd see a play out of Josh Allen that makes you think, man, this guy could be the best quarterback in the league. Rolling out, falling out of bounds, he throws a dart to Khalil Shakir. 53-yard play got them inside the Ravens 5, where Ty Johnson would run one in from 3 yards out, cutting that Ravens lead to 21-10. Bills got the ball back and tried a little trickery near midfield. A direct snap to receiver Curtis Samuel led to a lateral to Josh Allen, and as he went to uncork a throw, he got the ball knocked out of his hand by Kyle Van Noy while also getting obliterated. Did not look good. He was okay, but Bills offense coordinator Joe Brady threw that play in the trash. Ravens took advantage of that turnover and ended the short drive with Lamar Jackson running one in from 9 yards. Well-designed running play, and the Ravens were up 28-10. They continued to move the ball through Derrick Henry as he busted out another long run to get inside the 5. But the Ravens gave it to Henry again, who showed he's human, fumbling the ball into the end zone. But this game was so Raven as Patrick Ricard would recover it in the end zone, increasing the lead to 35-10. Big win for the Ravens, who finally weren't in a close game, obliterating the Bills in this one, giving them their first loss of the season. I said this could potentially be an AFC title game, if either team could get past the Chiefs, that is, but if that's the case, Buffalo's going to have to learn from this and show up a lot better the next game. The Ravens are now winners of 2 in a row and finding their groove. They could be 4-0, but settle for 2-2, I guess it's not too bad. Both these teams are capable of going to the Super Bowl, and we'll see how each team follows up this big AFC showdown. Monday, we had 2 games on Monday. You had the Dolphins hosting the Titans, and it was unclear how this would go. Miami was going with Snoop Huntley, with Tua still out with his injury. The Titans were still rolling with Will Levis, and Levis didn't have a great start to the game, throwing an interception to Ogba, who had to use his thighs to get the pick, but he came away with it. And it was already the 6th pick thrown by Will Levis in this short season, and you can see him mouthing the coach, "I didn't see him." It's like, yeah, we saw. But to be fair, it wasn't a great start for Huntley either. He threw a swing pass to Tyreek Hill, which was picked up by the Titans as it was a backwards lateral. You could see in the replay the Titans got the ball back. Will Levis would dive for a first down, coming up short, but getting a little grimace going as well. He'd go into the blue tent, and we'd see some Mason Rudolph action. The front reindeer went out there and was able to get in range for a 53-yard Nick Folk field goal. The Dolphins looked to answer, and faced with 4th and short, they'd go for it, trying to use Tyreek Hill's speed to go on the end around, but that Titans penetration was too much, blowing the play up, turnover on downs, leading to another field goal. This one 52 yards out, and the Titans led 6-0. Miami's Jason Sanders had a field goal of his own to cut the lead to 6-3, and then we'd see a wacky special teams play. 38-year-old Calais Campbell for the Dolphins laid out to try to block a punt, getting a piece of it, and that shortened the punt, causing a bit of chaos where the ball went into a group of people. Dolphins player, Titans player, grabbing it simultaneously. Fumble ensued, and the Titans recovered, but the replay showed the Titans touched the ball just before the Dolphins, so it counted as a down punt rather than a fumbling. Explained well by the officials. The Dolphins caught a break there, but that offense struggled, and they punted away anyway. And this time with running down the first half, Mason Rudolph found Tyler Boyd on a big play, just getting enough time to spike the ball with 1 second left, leading to another Nick Folk field goal, and the Titans led 9-3 at halftime. Seemed Will Levis was enough to go back out there, but Coach Brian Callahan was rolling with Rudolph to guide his sleigh the rest of the game. The Dolphins would open the second half with the ball, get some points, Huntley getting them in range for a long kick, where Sanders hit it from 57 yards out to cut it to 9-6. With Rudolph still out there, he'd pick up a first down to keep a long drive going, and then after Tony Pollard busted a long run to get inside the 10, fellow running back Tyjae Spears took the direct snap, faked the handoff, and ran it in from 7 yards. first touchdown of the game as the Titans led 16-6. Titans got it back again. Another Nick Folk field goal from 51 yards out. It was the first time the 39-year-old hit 3 field goals of over 50 yards in one game. He'd add a fifth in the fourth quarter, and the Titans were up 22-6. Late in the fourth, we'd see the Dolphins' first touchdown of the game. Tyler Huntley punching one in from a yard out. Dolphins wouldn't convert for 2 and trailed 22-12. Dolphins quickly got the ball back, were pinned in their own territory though, and Huntley looked to throw it out of the end zone after some pressure forced him to throw it away. However, it was an intentional grounding penalty in the end zone, which by rule is a safety, adding more points to the Titans as they took a 24-12 lead. And that safety was big in fantasy leagues as well. Whoever had that Titans defense could have won the game with that safety. Titans were just looking to run the clock down, and in the process, they moved down the field. And when faced with a 4th and goal, instead of kicking another Folk field goal, which would have been a new career high for him, the Titans just said, fuck it, let's go for it. On the play looked dead, except Tony Pollard found the edge, getting into the end zone, going up 31-12. Beating the Dolphins for their first win of the season. It was huge. It was the first time the Tennessee Titans scored over 30 points in a game since January 2022. Ironically, against the Dolphins, only just over 1,000 days ago. Mason Rudolph didn't do anything crazy to wow you. 9 for 17 with 85 yards. It's not going to jump out. But he had no turnovers. He had no plays that made Brian Callahan say he's a grown-up and he knows better. So that's a bit of a dilemma for the new coach. Go with the guy who can throw a football over those mountains but will probably create a meme that could cause you a game, Will Levis? Or do you go with the, I hate the phrase, game manager style of Mason Rudolph, the latter which did help you get your first win of the season? I mean, it was against the Miami team trying to integrate a new quarterback. But speaking of those Dolphins, not a lot of positives in that game. Couldn't get the running game going. Devon Achane, 10 carries, 15 yards. Huntley was a little off target with his receivers, but I feel Snoop will get better with some reps. And his guys, yeah, not a lot of good takeaways from there. Losing to a no longer winless Tennessee Titans team. But the juicier of the Monday Night Football matchups, in my opinion, the undefeated Seattle Seahawks going into the Lions' den to take on the Detroit Lions, where the home team capped off a 12-yard play drive with a 1-yard David Montgomery run. That touchdown was for Montgomery, made it 7 consecutive games with a tutty, which ties him with Lions legend Billy Sims. The Seahawks were looking to answer, and DK Metcalf made a catch and was trying to muscle for some more yards, showing off that strength, but he'd fumble it where the Lions recovered, and they'd get another score on the ground, this time from running back Jahmyr Gibbs. He'd punch one in from 3 yards, taking advantage of that turnover to make it 14-0. DK Metcalf made up for that fumble by getting a big play where he was taken down at the 1. And from there, Kenneth Walker III would punch it in. A nice welcome back to the lineup for him after he missed some time with that oblique injury he picked up in week 1. Potent Lions offense got the ball back and responded by marching down the field, capping off a drive with another Gibbs touchdown run. This one from a yard out, and his second of the game gave Detroit a 21-7 lead going into halftime. Seattle tried a Jason Myers 62-yard field goal as time expired, but it wasn't even close. Seahawks got the ball to start the second half, and they won an impressive drive. Little help by a Carlton Davis defensive pass interference, setting up a nice Geno Smith play action, where he'd roll out and find 4th-round pick out of Michigan, A.J. Barner. Tight end make the catch and found the end zone for his first career touchdown in the NFL. And the score was down to 21-14, but the Lions got the ball back and got a big play out of David Montgomery, who caught a pass from Jared Goff and turned into a truck, absolutely trucking Devon Witherspoon, who put the effort in just to get obliterated. But wow, Montgomery, after absorbing contact, he'd go 40 yards on the play. Just amazing, that guy. And then after Goff found Tim Patrick to get inside the 5, we'd see some magic. Wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown took a toss, and on it looked to be an end-around play, except he'd stop, look back to his quarterback, and throw the Detroit special, worked to perfection as St. Brown threw a dime over the defender's arms right into Jared Goff's perfectly laid out arms there. A beautifully executed play. Had the place buzzing, had me buzzing. 7-yard touchdown extended the Lions lead and put them back ahead by 2 touchdowns, 28-14. The Seahawks offense, they were rolling too, though. They'd go on a long drive led by Geno Smith, capping it off with another Kenneth Walker 1-yard touchdown run. Seahawks went for 2, and it looked like DK Metcalf made the catch. But it wasn't challenged as there was defensive pass interference on the Lions, so Seattle took the flag, moved up, and would fail to convert the conversion. It was kind of a weird play, in my opinion, but It was a very well analytically driven play, I guess. They were trying to go for two. I mean, they could have kicked the extra point, but they went for two, didn't get it, down 28-20. The Seahawks were hoping to stop that explosive Lions offense, but instead, they'd witness an explosion firsthand. Jared Goff found Jameson Williams streaking across the field. He'd take that catch all the way to the house, 70-yard touchdown. Williams had a pretty quiet night until that catch, and it was his second of two catches on the night, but he hit a home run with that. Detroit going up 35-20. But just as potent as that Lions offense were looking, so were the Seahawks. They'd answer with a quick drive. This time, Kenneth Walker running it out from a little further, a 21-yard touchdown. Third rushing touchdown of the game, and that's how you return to the lineup from injury. They'd kick the extra point this time and trailed the Lions by one score, 35-27. Seahawks finally forced a 3-and-out, giving their offense a chance to tie it up. They'd get stopped by the Lions defense and punted, and from there, Goff would find Sam Laporta, who was surprisingly in the lineup after he was injured in the week prior. He'd catch it and run it deep in the Seattle territory, where Goff would find Monron St. Brown from 7 yards out, returning the touchdown that he had thrown to him earlier. After that, the Lions are up 42-27. They'd get the ball back deep in their end, but instead of just running the clock out, they'd try a risky pass where Goff got sacked in the end zone, resulting in a safety, giving the Seahawks more points and the ball back. They trailed 42-29. Geno Smith would get intercepted, and that'd be it. Big time win for Detroit as they gave the Seahawks their first loss of the season. The Lions showed that when the offense is clicking, there isn't a lot you can really do. You could not have asked for a better night, literally, for Jared Goff. The quarterback had a perfect game. 18 for 18, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown. That's insane. Plus adding that 1-2 punch, Montgomery and Gibbs, which does kind of sound like a 70s cop show, by the way. This Detroit team can light it up. They can light up on anyone. They're a team that needs to be feared, just as head coach Dan Campbell intended. But despite that awesomeness I mentioned, the Lions, the Seahawks were right there with them most of this game. The return of Kenneth Walker III is huge. With him back in this lineup, this Seattle team's going to be even better. These are 2 3-1 teams that could even meet up in the NFC Conference game. Who knows? So that was the craziness of week 4. I look back at the predictions I made for week 4. 8-8. Not bad. About 50-50. Hoping to improve on that going to week 5. So let's quickly break down what's going to happen. Thursday Night Football, it's coming up right away here if you're watching this on Thursday, which is the day I'm recording it. You got the Buccaneers going in the Falcons. A big NFC South matchup with the division-leading Tampa Bay Bucks going in the ATL to face the Falcons. As mentioned earlier, the Falcons pulled off that late comeback against NFC South rivals New Orleans, while the Bucks beat up on the Eagles. And this one, I'm thinking, should be tight, coming down to the wire. Both quarterbacks are capable of putting the team on their back for a late win. And I feel the Bucks are going to go into Atlanta and beat the Falcons. It's going to come down to some fourth quarter magic. And I'm not going with the candlestick maker. I'm going with the baker. Baker Mayfield's going to do a little more than Kirk Cousins to get the win. I'm seeing Tampa Bay pulling off the Thursday nighter. On Sunday, you got to get up bloody early, innit? You got to watch the game in London between the Jets and the Vikings. This should be a big one. The Jets, they're feeling pretty shitty, losing 10-9 to the Broncos, where the Bo Nix did not have huge yards, so they're disappointed with that loss. The Vikings remained undefeated after beating Aaron Rodgers' former team, the Packers, even though they almost coughed it up late. And many years watching Rodgers with the Green Bay Packers, he hates the Vikings. He'll be looking to try to give them their first loss of the season. And for the Vikings, Sam Darnold's looked like the MVP of the league right now, but he hasn't faced a defense like the Jets yet. I'm thinking it'll be a hard-fought game, winning more fans in the UK with this great play. But I have the Vikings coming back to North America, still undefeated, picking the Vikings to win in London. Usually that's a Scandinavian thing, but they're going to be taking over the UK that weekend. You got Andy Dalton on his comeback tour continuing with the Carolina Panthers as they go into Chicago to face another one of the Red Rifles' former teams. The Panthers followed up their first win of the year by losing to one of Dalton's former teams, the Bengals. The team is vastly improved with the Red Rifle behind center, and these are all good moments for Bryce Young to try to be a sponge, take everything he can in from the sidelines. The Bears moved to 2-2 after beating the Rams, and this should be a good matchup. Veteran quarterback, young quarterback. I think the Panthers are good enough to beat this Bear teams. If Dalton can protect the ball against that ball-hungry Bears defense, I think they can take this one. I see them taking the win here. It's going to come down to some decision-making by Caleb Williams, as he has looked to be improving a little bit on that, but I'm picking the Red Rifles and the Panthers to pick up their second win of the season in Chicago. I mentioned how the Commanders have been the team to watch this season. They're feeling pretty good, and they'll be hosting the Cleveland Browns, where the Browns lost another tough game, as mentioned earlier, but they're always in the game, it seems, especially when that defense plays up to their level. Washington rookie sensation Jaden Daniels has not faced a player like Myles Garrett yet, and I'm sure throughout the game Sunday they'll probably meet up a few times. I'm hoping it doesn't go too bad for the youngster, because Garrett's a bad man. But despite that defensive pressure, I'm thinking the rookie quarterback, he'll thrive. Commanders, I see them winning this game. Plenty of running, plenty of accurate throwing from Daniels, and I think the Browns will give him a little trouble, but I'm thinking the Commanders take this one. An AFC matchup that's always been thrilling in the past, the Miami Dolphins going up to Foxborough to take on the New England Patriots, and some injuries and changes in the organization. This game doesn't have the usual luster to it, but it should be a tough one. We'll see what Snoop Huntley can do in the second start with the Dolphins. I'm sure Gerard Mayo and crew have some nice defensive schemes made up to go against Huntley. And if they can stick to their schemes and run the ball effectively without fumbling, Ramondre Stevenson, they could pull this off, especially with the Dolphins' offense struggling without Tua Tagovailoa. I'll be interested to see how the Dolphins plan on getting the ball into the hands of those playmakers, Tyreek Hill, HN. These guys got to touch the ball way more. But I think they're going to get outfoxed in Foxborough by the Patriots, and I have the Pats giving the Dolphins another loss. Big AFC South bout with the Colts and Jaguars after Colts quarterback Anthony Richardson left the game with a hip injury last game. There were questions if he'd be good to go week 5. Sounds like that question is still in the air, but it's trending towards Joe Flacco starting against the Jaguars. He's ready. He can lead this good Colts team to another win. Jacksonville's really hoping against that. The winless Jags are in danger of dropping to 0-5. A nightmare for this franchise, who are desperate in need of a win with Trevor Lawrence. Each loss that adds to that losing streak is eating away at him more and more. You wonder how this franchise will recover at this point. It sounds over dramatic, but when you have expectations as set as high as the owner, saying this is the best team ever assembled in Jacksonville, and you start 0-4, oh, shit's going to start changing if they lose another one. But you know what? Cats are dangerous when they're against the wall, and a Jaguar's a pretty big cat. So I have the Jaguars picking up their first win of the season here. Possibly the game of the weekend features an AFC showdown between the Bills and Texans. Both teams 3-1 record. Bills are coming off that first loss of the season I mentioned to the Ravens, while the Texans righted the ship a bit with that comeback win over Jacksonville. Expecting lots of firepower in this one. Maybe a good idea to tune your lineup with some Bills and Texans players. I feel there'll be lots of scores in this one. It's going to come down to turnovers probably. I think the younger quarterback, C.J. Stroud's going to protect it a little better late, and I think then the Texans win this one. They're second in the row while giving the Bills their second loss in a row. One player not showing up for the Bills is going to be Von Miller, suspended 4 games for NFL personal conduct. Pretty gross report if you look into it. Spousal abuse, not a fan. Real bullshit move by Von Miller. What are you doing, man? But anyway, AFC North matchup with two teams you would think would have better records coming in. The 2-2 Ravens visiting the 1-3 Bengals. The Bengals were desperate for their first win of the season and got it, while the Ravens jumped on those massive shoulders of Derrick Henry for their second win in a row, and this one could go either way. Joe Burrow seemed to have found his groove a bit with his disgruntled wide receivers, especially Jamar Chase. Their big plays could lead to a Bengals win, but I don't know what the Bengals are going to do when they have to stop that Ravens running game, and because of that, I'm giving the Ravens the edge in the Cincinnati for their third win in a row. Big AFC West matchup, you got the Raiders and Broncos, two teams that are at 2-2 and two teams that hate the shit out of each other. These division games are always fun, and I don't know where it's going to come from this side. I'm guessing we're going to see some cool plays. The Raiders' defense isn't as suffocating as the Jets, so I'm thinking rookie Bo Nix should have better numbers. He should be a little looser, but I'm thinking that little bit of looseness might cost him late in the game, and I'm thinking the Broncos will go up early, but the Raiders do what the Raiders do with Gardner Minshew, and that's come back to win the game, and I feel the Raiders will beat the Broncos that game. 1-3 Cardinals visit the 2-2 49ers. And I know I picked the Cardinals to sneak into the playoffs, but I don't know if they'll beat San Francisco in this one. Brock Purdy is chucking and hucking and chucking down the field, and the Cardinals defense, they like to give up big plays, so that could get ugly unless we see a massive game out of Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. I think this one could be one-sided like the last Cardinals game. Unless James Conner gets going. When he gets going, everything's just easier for the Cardinals, so hopefully they can establish that running game. Otherwise, the 49ers are going to take off with this one, despite all those injuries we talked about in that segment earlier. You have the Giants flying across the country to face off the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seahawks are coming off that first loss of the season. I see him bouncing back in a big way. I don't think the Giants will have an answer for a healthy Kenneth Walker Jr. I see him beating up that Giants defense. The Giants a little banged up at running back with Singletary. They may not even have Malik Neighbors in this one as he's dealing with that concussion from the game prior. So I have the Seahawks bringing the Giants down here and beating them in Seattle. My Green Bay Packers head to LA to face the Rams, and it was a bummer to start so terribly against Minnesota. The Packers showed what they can do when they're clicking. The Rams are injured all over the field, and I think it's going to be too much to overcome with Jordan Love working his way back into the Packers offense. I'm looking for a big game out of Love. Tons of yards, few scores, big win for the Packers. Sunday nighter, you have two rivals who met in a few Super Bowls over the years. The Dallas Cowboys, fresh off a win, visiting the Pittsburgh Steelers, who suffered their first loss of the season. Everyone is all back on the Dallas hype train, but I think that train's going to come to a halt in Pittsburgh. I feel TJ Watt is going to have many meetings with Dak Prescott. And Justin Fields, he's played some damn good football. He's been so efficient with that Steelers offense, such a threat on the ground. I think he's going to get even better as the season goes. Dallas is going to come in the game talking more trash, but I see the Steelers putting them in a bag and taking them to the trash. And in the Monday night game, I mentioned a potential game of the week earlier. This could be the game of the week. Defending champions and still undefeated Kansas City Chiefs are hosting the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints have lost 2 straight after that magical start to the season where they look like the greatest show on turf remix. But the Chiefs are really coming to this game beat up. We'll see how they respond to not having Rice in the lineup. We'll see who's going to step up at receiver. Might see lots of Kelsey in this one. I think if there's ever a time to steal a win in Kansas City, it's now. If the Saints can slow down Chris Jones even a little bit, I can see a big Alvin Kamara night on Monday night. Maybe 3 touchdowns, possibly 4. If they give it to Kamara and feed him, I know Carr's going to want to huck it and chuck it with Mahomes, but Kamara, that's where it's going to be. That's the key. But I see the defending champs losing their first game of the season while the Saints go marching back into their winning ways. There you have it, a Week 4 recap with some Week 5 picks. Hope you'd enjoy the episode with your boy, Ren City. Thanks for tuning in. Keep your eyes open for the next episode of Sports and Shorts of Sorts. This is Ren City. Ren City out.